you as
Okay,
well.
great.
And as you see, I have a wonderful loyal team.
I know, and a documentary filmmaker.
Oh, awesome.
No, well, with you.
Let's see if I can get you a card out here. There we go. A card and a business card. There you go.
Good.
Yeah. Awesome.
My mother's keeper.
And my mother's keeper.
And my mother's keeper.
And that did the M-I instead of M-I because it starts the conversation. Stigma's so thick, folks don't want to talk about mental health unless they know. And so I get so many questions asking me, why am I? Because in our world, the M-I doesn't stand for mental illness, it stands for mental intelligence. Because we want to help folks look at it in a different understanding. It's responsible behavior to understand that we must deal with our mental health. And
Wait, let me start. Let me start interviewing you. Hold on, or at least recording because you're saying all the good things. Okay. So I'm gonna film you. Are you comfortable with that?
I am.
And let's just move on a little bit.
Okay.
Rhonda.
Yes, Dr. Rhonda Hamilton. I'll take that.
Dr. Rhonda Hamilton, tell me where you traveled from and why you're here.
I am actually here, a native of Washington, D.C., and I traveled from Ward 6, and I'm here because there's nowhere else to be. This is the nation's seat of governance, and our democracy is in jeopardy, grave jeopardy. The reality for me as a mental health advocate for the better part of a decade here in the nation's capital is that I realized that the conversation surrounding the anxiety, the depression, the feelings of ostracization, not understanding what's going on, feeling hopeless, and understanding that perhaps the majority is this president and his cruel leadership. The reality for me is that I wonder about the many families who will stay in the shadows because of the stigma of mental health. Many in communities that come from where I come from, not only are they challenged to understand their mental health appropriately and get the proper help, they also are not very understanding of this democracy. It's very scary that we see many in my community speaking as if we're supposed to sit this out. And to me, that speaks to the trauma, the unresolved trauma of the many, many years of the stories of slavery as they come forward, they being President Trump, to attempt to whitewash our history. I'm a proud daughter of a military man who served, who came home long before we knew what PTSD was, and we lost him to his drug addictions from his military service. And so it's very hurtful to try to erase a history of a people, of a population, and I believe that this president is being very negligent and unaccountable to the people, and I believe that that has a lot to do with what his mental health. I believe that calls into question his mental health, because no one in their right mind would be as cruel, in my opinion, as he's being to our people. So I had to be here today.
Can you say more about the impact of efforts to erase history, to reduce the import of contributions of people who are not white?
Absolutely, absolutely. First and foremost, the removal of DEI, which is such a hypocrisy because we know that many members in the president's cabinet have created jobs for their own relatives. So DEI is not acceptable, but nepotism is, and we're supposed to act as if we don't understand that. Removing the names off of the tombstones in Arlington Cemetery, just things that we could have never imagined. Of course we know that our history exists. Of course we know that folks that look just like me, those shoulders that I stand on, help to build this city and also this nation. And the reality that they would attempt to divide us, provoke us, diminish us, it's just cruel. It's just cruel. Of course we made heavy contributions in our country, and I believe that we were making some strides. We had our first black president, and we still were struggling, but we cannot grow or win as a country when we continue to try to forget our history. It's not healthy for our children. And many of us, we're not going to be here. Inevitably, we're going to die. And so we're supposed to pass it on to our children, our youth, and the reality that we would go in and change our history, I really believe that calls into question, or should call into question, their mental health.
When you were preparing to come out today, how did you take care of your own nervous system? How do you tune in to what's happening?
Well, that's a wonderful question. I am currently running to be DC's next mayor in the 2026 elections. However, we've got to save our own city, our own autonomy, because this president also has us under attack for what we call our home rule. And the reality is that my nervous system and my mental health is intact because I've been geared up for this fight for quite some time. Since we elected him, he made a promise, I'd like to believe, on the campaign trail that he was coming for us. And so my mindset, the first thing I thought about was the mental health of our citizens, because I had already been on the ground. I had already watched as our current local leadership had failed in these areas. And so I just knew that it would be a much heavier impact for them to now understand that this president, who happens to believe that fear is power. And so I realized that